The Forbidden Classroom. The Galactic Academy was a place of learning, a towering building on a distant planet known for training the brightest minds across the galaxy. Students from all different species gathered here to learn about the universe, technology, and history. But today was different. Today, the students were about to learn something so dangerous, so forbidden, that it had been kept hidden from them for centuries. As the students filled the massive lecture hall, there was an unusual quietness. The usual chatter was gone. Even the usual excitement in the air was missing. They had all heard rumors about today's lesson, whispers in the hallways that the instructor, Master Tarek, would be teaching them something new, something strange. Master Tarek was an elder of the academy, highly respected, but also feared. He had never spoken about Earth before. No one really knew much about it. It was just a small, insignificant planet, far away, mostly ignored by the rest of the galaxy. And yet, Master Tarek had spent decades studying it. No one knew why. The students sat down nervously, sensing the tension in the room. Master Tarek walked to the front of the class, his ancient face calm, but his eyes were cold and sharp. The room became even quieter. He stood there for a moment, watching the students, as if judging whether they were truly ready for the lesson that was about to unfold. "You have all been taught about the great civilizations of the galaxy," he began, his voice low but strong. "You know the history of the Zorith Empire, the Threx Federation, and the great battles that shaped our universe. But there is one history that has been kept hidden, a history so dangerous that it has been erased from every record, a history that could change everything." The students exchanged uneasy glances. This was not like any lesson they had ever had. Earth? Why would Master Tarek be talking about Earth? It was just a tiny, primitive planet on the edge of the galaxy. What could possibly be dangerous about it? "Today, you will learn about a power, a force so strong, it made even the most powerful empires of our galaxy tremble in fear," Master Tarek continued. "You will learn about the humans." The room fell completely silent. No one spoke. No one moved. The students were stunned. Humans, the simple creatures from a small planet in the farthest corner of the galaxy. They were nothing compared to the great civilizations that had shaped the galaxy. The students had always been taught that humans were weak, that they had no place in the grand scheme of things. Yet here was Master Tarek, a respected teacher, telling them that humans had a power that could shake the galaxy to its core. Master Tarek stood still for a moment, letting the weight of his words sink in. The humans, in their ignorance and stubbornness, built something that no one expected, he said, his voice growing darker. And that something is why they are banned from the galactic wars, why they are seen as a threat that could destroy everything we have built. The students felt a chill run through them. This was not what they had been taught. The history of the galaxy had always painted humans as insignificant, weak, even laughable. The idea that they could be dangerous seemed impossible. Master Tarek paced slowly across the front of the room, his eyes scanning the students one by one. "You see," he said softly, "the humans are not as weak as they appear. They have something that no other species has, a drive to survive, to fight, no matter the cost. And when their backs are against the wall, they will do anything to win. They have a secret weapon that the galaxy has never fully understood, a weapon that could change the balance of power." The students were on edge now, their curiosity piqued, but also filled with a sense of unease. What could this weapon be? How could a simple species like humans have something so powerful? Master Tarek stopped pacing and looked directly at the students. "You will learn this secret today. But I warn you," he said, his voice sharp, "it is a secret that could destroy everything you know. It is a truth that has been buried for so long, not because it is insignificant, but because it is too dangerous for you to understand." He turned to the holoscreen behind him and activated a series of images. The first image showed the planet Earth, a blue and green orb floating in space. It looked peaceful, beautiful, and almost ordinary. But the students knew better than to judge a planet by its appearance. They had all been taught to respect the unknown. As the images changed, the students saw human soldiers, ordinary people, armed with weapons unlike anything they had ever seen. These were not the weapons of a primitive species. They were advanced, precise, and designed for one purpose: to destroy. The students gasped as more images appeared on the screen. Fleets of ships, war machines, and structures that were clearly built for combat. "This is why humanity was banned from the wars," Master Tarek said quietly. "Because they have the power to defeat us all." The class sat in stunned silence, their minds racing. The humans had built weapons that could rival the mightiest galactic fleets. How was this possible? What kind of weapon did they possess? What could this mean for the galaxy? Master Tarek's eyes narrowed, his voice dropping even lower. "And that, my students, is why we must never underestimate them." The students were left in shock, their minds filled with questions. The lesson had just begun, but they already knew their entire understanding of the galaxy, and their place in it would never be the same again. The hidden power. The students sat in stunned silence, trying to process what they had just heard. The image of Earth on the screen still hovered before them, peaceful and unassuming. But everything Master Tarek had just said echoed in their minds. Humans were a threat. They were more than just a weak species on the edge of the galaxy. They had something, a hidden power that could change the balance of the entire galaxy. Master Tarek's words weighed heavily on the students. They had been taught that power came from strength, advanced technology, or numbers. But the humans had none of those things. At least, that's what they thought. They were supposed to be primitive, weak. How could they possibly challenge the most powerful empires in the galaxy? Master Tarek looked at the students, reading their confusion. "I can see the doubt in your eyes," he said, his voice soft but serious. "You're wondering how a species so small, so isolated, could have such an impact." He paused, letting the tension grow. The students were on the edge of their seats, waiting for him to continue. They knew this lesson was unlike any other. Whatever they were about to learn was not only shocking but could change their view of the galaxy forever. "The humans didn't start with the technology we use today," Master Tarek continued. "No, they started with something simpler. A simple idea. Something we, as a galaxy, have forgotten." The students leaned forward. What could be so powerful, so simple, that it could make the galaxy tremble? They started with determination, the will to survive, the ability to adapt to any challenge, no matter how impossible it seemed. They were born with a fire that no one could put out. When faced with a challenge, they did not run. They fought. Master Tarek's eyes glinted with something dark. "And that is why they are dangerous." One student, a young alien named Zoreth, raised a trembling hand. "But they were just a small species. How did they grow so powerful?" Zoreth asked. "How did they defeat the great empires of the galaxy?" Master Tarek's lips curled into a grim smile. "Ah, that is the question, isn't it?" He turned to the screen, and the image of Earth shifted. It now showed scenes of ancient battles, humans fighting wars against each other, primitive weapons clashing against one another. But even then, there was something unmistakable in the way the humans fought. Relentless. Relentless in the face of death. The first humans were not much different from the rest of us. They fought amongst themselves, torn by wars and violence. But even then, they began to build something. Something that would be their key to survival. Master Tarek tapped a button, and a new image appeared. A spaceship. Simple at first, but the designs were clever, efficient, and built to last. Their strength didn't come from the technology alone, he said. It came from their minds. The humans didn't have the luxury of the advanced technology many other species did. They couldn't rely on brute strength or overwhelming numbers. They had to rely on something else. Innovation. The humans created something that no one expected. A weapon made not from sheer power, but from cleverness. The The students looked at the image on the screen, eyes wide with awe. The ship on the screen wasn't just any ship. It was the first human-made spacecraft, a marvel of design, built not to match the power of the great fleets, but to outsmart them. Master Tarek continued. They called it the Rogue Fleet. Unlike the large, heavily armed ships of the galaxy's empires, the human fleet was small, fast, and unpredictable. They used surprise tactics, using their ships in ways no one thought possible. They didn't fight the way we fought. They fought on their own terms, always thinking several steps ahead. A murmur of disbelief ran through the students. How could something so simple, so unconventional, change everything? But that's not all, Master Tarek said, his voice dropping to a whisper. They didn't stop at just technology. The humans also built something more dangerous, their unity. The galaxy had long ago fractured into countless factions. Each species fought for its own survival, its own interests. But humans, they fought together. Even when everything seemed lost, even when they were facing certain defeat, they fought for each other. They fought as one. The students were speechless. They had never heard of a species that fought with such unity, such a bond between individuals. Every species in the galaxy had its own strengths, but none had ever united in the way humans did, and that was what made them so dangerous. Master Tarek stood at the front of the classroom, watching the students carefully. This is why humanity was banned from the Galactic Wars, he said. Their power comes not from their technology, their numbers, or their strength. It comes from their will to survive. They will never give up. And when they're pushed to the edge, they can do the unthinkable. The students sat in stunned silence. They had always been told that the humans were insignificant, that they could be ignored. But now, they understood. The humans were no longer a species to be underestimated. They had the potential to change the galaxy in ways no one could have predicted. Master Tarek turned off the screen and looked at the students one last time. Remember this lesson, he said gravely. The next time you look at Earth, remember that behind its peaceful surface lies a force that has the power to shatter everything you know. The humans are not the weaklings you once thought them to be. The room was filled with quiet tension as the students absorbed his words. They had entered the classroom expecting to learn about history. What they didn't know was that they were being taught a lesson about the future, a future where humanity's hidden power would rise, and nothing would ever be the same again. The revelation of humanity's strength. The classroom buzzed with nervous energy as the alien students processed everything they had just learned. Master Tarek's words echoed in their minds. Humans were not just survivors, they were something much more dangerous. They were the galaxy's greatest unknown threat, and their rise was inevitable. Zoreth, still struggling to fully understand what he had heard, raised his hand once more. His voice trembled with a mixture of fear and curiosity. Master Tarek, we've been taught that the galaxy's greatest powers are determined by military strength and technology. How can humans, with their primitive beginnings, compete with the power of the Galactic Empire or the Zorathian Dominion? Master Tarek smiled, his eyes gleaming with a quiet confidence. He knew Zoreth wasn't alone in his confusion. The entire class shared the same skepticism, and Tarek was ready to answer. The question you ask is one that many galactic leaders have asked themselves, he replied. But the answer lies in the very essence of humanity. The key is not in their technology, although they have become quite skilled. The true power of humanity lies in their creativity and their unpredictability. They do not think like us. They do not follow the same rules. They find new ways to solve problems. They find ways to win against impossible odds. This is what makes them so dangerous. The growing fear. The alien students couldn't shake the weight of what they had learned. Every word from Master Tarek seemed to echo in their minds, like an unsettling hum they couldn't escape. Humanity was not just a rising force in the galaxy. It was a force that could change everything. Their rapid rise, their ability to form alliances, and their adaptability in war had made them the most unpredictable species in the galaxy. But now, there was something else that loomed over the students' minds. Fear. A quiet, creeping fear that humanity might soon be the one to control the galaxy. Zorath sat at his desk, staring at the holographic map of the galaxy. The boundaries of different empires, once so clear and well-established, now seemed to be shifting in unpredictable ways. The United Human Front was expanding rapidly, taking control of more systems, gaining new allies. Zorath had never thought of humanity as anything more than a minor player, one among many, but now it felt as if the balance of power was tipping in their favor. He wasn't the only one who felt the change. Across the classroom, his fellow students whispered to one another, their voices low, tense. Each student grappled with the same unsettling realization. Humanity was no longer something to be overlooked. They were no longer the underdogs, struggling for survival. They were becoming the apex predators of the galaxy. Master Tarek watched them carefully, knowing full well that their fears were growing. They had been taught to fear the Zorathian dominion, the Taranthians, the Vexari, the great empires of the galaxy that controlled vast territories. But now, with humanity's rise, that fear was starting to feel misplaced. He paced slowly in front of the class, waiting for the perfect moment to drive home the next part of the lesson. The key to understanding humanity's power, he began, his voice calm but firm, lies not just in their alliances or their strategic brilliance. It is in their resolve. They are willing to sacrifice everything for what they believe in. They will never stop. And that, my students, is what makes them different from all the other species in the galaxy. Zorath looked up, meeting Master Tarek's gaze. His heart pounded in his chest as the truth of the situation dawned on him. Humanity didn't just fight for survival. They fought with a purpose. They fought with a passion that nothing could extinguish. They've been pushed to the brink, Master Tarek continued. Many of their own people died in wars fought on their home planet, Earth. They fought against overwhelming odds, against enemies that seemed impossible to defeat. But they won. And they didn't just win. They learned. They adapted. And they grew stronger with every conflict. No other species in the galaxy has this kind of resilience. The students exchanged uneasy glances. They had been taught that the galaxy was a place of strength and power, a place where only the strongest survived. But humanity had proven time and time again that it was not just power that defined strength. It was the unyielding will to never give up. And that scared them. Master Tarek saw the fear in their eyes, and he pressed on. You must understand this. The Galactic Empire, the greatest military force ever assembled, underestimated humanity. They thought the humans were too primitive, too divided to ever amount to anything. They thought they could control them, but in their arrogance, they failed to see the one thing that made humanity truly dangerous. He paused for a moment, letting the suspense build before revealing the truth. Humans are relentless. They will not be broken. And when you push them too far, they will rise every single time. The Galactic Empire didn't understand this, and now they are paying the price. Zorath felt a chill run down his spine. He had heard of the Empire's downfall, how their once mighty fleets had been decimated by a series of well-coordinated human-led rebellions. But hearing it from Master Tarek made the truth seem more real. Humanity had taken down the Empire. And now, they were expanding faster than anyone had anticipated. Zorath could not shake the image of Earth, the small blue planet that had been the birthplace of this unimaginable power. How could one planet, with so little resources, create such a force that could challenge the galaxy's greatest empires? Zorath leaned forward, his voice barely a whisper. Master Tarek, how can we stop them? How can the galaxy's empires hope to stop the rise of humanity? Master Tarek gave him a hard, almost sorrowful look. That, Zorath, is the question we must all answer. And the truth is, we don't know. We've never faced anything like them. They may not have the largest armies, but they have something more valuable: unity. The united human front has proven to be the one force that no one can stand against. When humans join forces, their power becomes unmatched. He paused, walking slowly around the room as he spoke. This is why the Galactic Council banned humans from joining the war. We are not afraid of their technology or their weapons, but of their will. When humans decide to fight, they fight with everything they have. They fight for each other, for their families, for their species. They are a force driven by purpose, and that makes them unstoppable. Zoreth's mind raced. He had thought that the alien empires had all the power, all the resources, all the knowledge. But now he saw the truth. The most dangerous weapon in the galaxy was not a fleet or a superweapon. It was humanity's unwavering will to survive and succeed, no matter the cost. As the lesson ended, the students filed out of the room in stunned silence. Zoreth's thoughts lingered on Master Tarek's words. Humanity was no longer the weak species they had once believed them to be. They were an emerging power, and the galaxy was not prepared for what was coming. The fear was real. The fear was growing, and humanity's unstoppable rise was just beginning. The hidden power of humanity. The days that followed Master Tarek's class were filled with uneasy silence. Zoreth couldn't shake the unsettling feeling that had settled in his chest. He had always viewed humanity as a fragile species, insignificant compared to the mighty empires that controlled the galaxy. But now, after hearing the truth, the very thought of underestimating them seemed absurd. The fear wasn't just growing, it was consuming him. Zoreth sat alone in his quarters, staring out at the stars. The galaxy seemed so vast, so full of power and mysteries, yet he couldn't stop thinking about Earth, the birthplace of humanity. He couldn't understand it. How could a planet so small and unassuming create a species capable of altering the course of galactic history? The truth was clear now. Humanity wasn't just another species. They were different. They had something no other species had, a deep, unshakable belief in their own potential. Zoreth had heard it before, in passing, from his elders and mentors, but he had never truly understood the full extent of it until now. The next day, Master Tarek's lessons took an even darker turn. As the alien students gathered in the lecture hall, the atmosphere was heavy, charged with the tension of the knowledge they now shared. Humanity had revealed a side of themselves that no one had expected, a side that even the Galactic Empire had failed to recognize. Master Tarek stood before the class, his expression grave. Today, we will delve deeper into the power humanity possesses. It is not their technology that makes them dangerous. It is not their weapons or their military prowess. No, it is something far more insidious. The students listened in silence, their eyes fixed on Master Tarek. They had all felt it, the growing unease in the air. The shift in the balance of power wasn't just a theory anymore. It was real. Humanity was on the verge of becoming the galaxy's most formidable force. And nothing, not even the combined strength of the empires, could stop them now. Humanity's greatest weapon, Master Tarek continued, his voice low, is their ability to adapt. Unlike any other species, humans can learn, grow, and evolve in ways no one can predict. They don't rely solely on their current knowledge or their resources. They rely on something far deeper, something inside them that drives them to constantly push the boundaries of what is possible. Zoreth's mind raced as he listened. He had seen the evidence. Human soldiers who had been outnumbered and outgunned had managed to turn the tide of battles in their favor. Entire fleets had been destroyed by unexpected tactics. Human leaders had formed alliances that no one had ever thought possible. They had done the unthinkable, and they were only getting started. The Galactic Empire, Master Tarek continued, did not fall because of the strength of the human military. It fell because humans were able to adapt and overcome every obstacle that stood in their way. They fought with an ingenuity that no other species could match, and they learned from every defeat. When they faced the greatest challenges, they became stronger. Zoreth remembered the stories he had heard about the downfall of the Galactic Empire. The once mighty empire had underestimated humanity, thinking their technology and military strength were enough to crush them. But it was their adaptability that had turned the tide. Humanity had learned how to counter the empire's tactics, how to disrupt their fleets, how to use the empire's own strength against them. The result was inevitable. The empire crumbled, and humanity emerged victorious. But the true danger of humanity, Master Terrify said, his voice growing even more solemn, is not their tactics or their strength. It is their will to never give up. When they are pushed to the edge, when they are forced to fight for their survival, they will do whatever it takes to win. They do not know the meaning of surrender. Zorath shivered at the weight of those words. He had always believed that the key to survival in the galaxy was strength. Strength in numbers, strength in technology, strength in resources. But humanity had proven that strength alone was not enough. Their true power came from something far more primal, their unyielding will to survive, to protect their people, and to fight for their future. As the class ended, Zorath stood, his mind overwhelmed by the implications of what he had learned. He had once seen humanity as a footnote in the history of the galaxy, a minor species that would never pose a serious threat to the dominant empires. But now he saw them for what they truly were, a rising power that could not be ignored. And the most terrifying part of it all was that humanity didn't just want to survive, they wanted to rule. The students left the classroom, their thoughts heavy with fear and awe. Zorath couldn't help but wonder, if humanity could defeat the Galactic Empire, what else were they capable of? What would happen if they turned their sights on the rest of the galaxy? He had always believed that the Galactic Empire was the most powerful force in the universe. But now, it seemed that humanity had the potential to surpass them. The more Zorath thought about it, the more he realized that the galaxy would never be the same again. Humanity had discovered their true power, and the other species of the galaxy were about to learn the hard way. The unseen forces. Zorath stood silently in the hall, staring out at the endless stretch of stars through the viewport. The lessons from Master Terrify had shaken him to his core, and now, alone with his thoughts, he couldn't ignore the truth that had become inescapable. Humanity wasn't just a species to watch, it was a force to fear. Their relentless drive to adapt, survive, and overcome any challenge was beyond what even the most powerful empires could prepare for. Zorath had heard the whispers, the warnings, and now the truth was undeniable. The Galactic Empire had underestimated humanity, and it had cost them their dominance. Now, with humanity's power rising at an astonishing rate, the rest of the galaxy was left scrambling to understand how they could face an enemy that didn't fight like any other species. Humanity fought with ingenuity, creativity, and above all, resourcefulness, qualities no one had anticipated. The alien students began to file out of the lecture hall, their faces tense with unease. Zorath noticed that they all wore the same expression, a mixture of fear and awe. No one had imagined that Earth, a small and insignificant planet at the edge of the galaxy, would become the center of such a shifting power struggle. But now, as their potential became clear, the realization was dawning on every species in the galaxy. Humanity was no longer a footnote in galactic history. They were becoming its authors. Zorath's mind raced back to what Master Terrify had said. It is not just their ability to adapt, the instructor had emphasized. It is their insatiable hunger for knowledge. Humanity's thirst for discovery, for answers, is unmatched. They do not stop at what they know. They pursue the unknown. And it is this constant pursuit that makes them unstoppable. The more Zorath thought about it, the more he understood. Earth's inhabitants didn't just learn from their failures. They used every mistake as a stepping stone toward greater understanding. It wasn't just about military tactics or strategies, though those were formidable. It was about thinking outside the box, finding solutions where others saw none. Humanity's greatest strength wasn't in their technology, it was in their minds. Zorath couldn't ignore the evidence. The defeat of the Galactic Empire hadn't been a fluke or a momentary lapse in judgment. It had been the result of a calculated, relentless effort by humans to outthink their opponents, to turn every battle into a new opportunity to learn and grow stronger. Every loss was an experiment, every victory a new path forward. But now, as humanity's power continued to grow, the question remained, what would they do next? Zorath turned and walked out of the hall, his thoughts a swirling storm. The more he thought about humanity's potential, the more unsettled he became. The galaxy was full of advanced species, with technology far beyond what Earth had, yet it was humanity who had overcome the seemingly unbeatable empire. And what were they capable of now, when they had learned the art of war, the ways of power, and the importance of unity? For a moment, Zorath wondered if the galaxy's fate had already been sealed. Humanity wasn't just fighting for survival, they were fighting for dominance. He stepped into the courtyard, where his fellow students had gathered. They too seemed lost in thought, their faces reflecting the same confusion and fear he had felt in his own heart. Zorath didn't know if any of them fully understood the gravity of what humanity had done, but he did. "We're not just looking at the rise of a new empire," Zorath said aloud, almost to himself. One of his classmates, a tall Zorgian named Malrix, turned to him. "What do you mean?" Zorath paused, struggling to put the feeling into words. "I mean, humanity has become something greater than just another empire. They've become a force, a living storm, and we've only seen the beginning." Malrix furrowed his brow, not fully grasping Zorath's words. But Zorath could see it in his eyes. He too was starting to understand. Something deep inside humanity had been unleashed, and it was only a matter of time before the entire galaxy felt its wrath. In the weeks that followed, reports began to flood in from all corners of the galaxy. The remnants of the Galactic Empire, once a colossal power, were falling into chaos. The forces of humanity, not just in their military might, but in their political and economic reach, were expanding faster than anyone could keep up with. The Empire had attempted to rally, to form alliances with other species in the galaxy, but every effort had been thwarted by one simple fact. Humanity didn't need allies. They were themselves the greatest weapon. Zorath's thoughts shifted to what might come next. The galaxy was filled with long-established powers, each of them fierce in their own right. But none of them had the drive, the ingenuity, or the unshakable will that humanity possessed. Zorath couldn't shake the feeling that humanity wasn't just aiming for control, they were aiming for everything. The galaxy's balance had already shifted, and Zorath knew that things would never be the same again. If humanity's rise was as unstoppable as Master Terrik suggested, then the time was near for a new order, one where humanity would lead, and the rest of the galaxy would have to follow. The question wasn't whether humanity could conquer the galaxy. The question was, how far would they go? The turning tide. The galaxy was in turmoil, and no one knew it better than Zorath. He could feel the change in the air, a strange tension that hung over every meeting, every conversation. The powerful Galactic Empire, once thought to be unbeatable, was in a state of disarray. They were scrambling to maintain control, to hold on to their fading power. And all the while, humanity's influence was growing stronger, faster, and more undeniable. Zorath walked through the corridors of the academy, his mind weighed down with the new information he had gathered. He could barely believe it. Humans, with their primitive technology, had become a force that the galaxy could no longer ignore. Every corner of space was starting to feel their presence, and it wasn't just their military power that was unsettling. It was their political savvy, their ability to unite disparate factions, and their incredible knack for turning enemies into allies. He stopped at a window that overlooked the sprawling city below. The bright lights of Zorath's homeworld shimmered in the distance, but all he could think of were the reports from Earth. He had seen the footage, read the messages, and heard the stories. Earth was no longer just a small planet on the edge of the galaxy. It was becoming the center of a movement that would reshape everything. He could still hear Master Terrik's voice in his head. Humanity does not need the galaxy to accept them. They will make their own place within it. And when they set their sights on something, there is nothing that can stand in their way. Zorath's thoughts shifted to the latest reports that had been flooding the Academy. The once mighty fleets of the Galactic Empire were being systematically dismantled. Powerful alliances between alien species were beginning to fracture. Even the most influential leaders in the galaxy were whispering one question in hushed tones: what happens when humanity decides it is time to take what it wants? Zorath shivered at the thought. No one in the galaxy had expected humanity to rise like this. For centuries, the Galactic Empire had kept order, subjugating worlds and species, establishing a brutal and systematic control. No species dared challenge their rule. Until now, the unassuming humans had quietly observed, studied, and waited. Now they were making their move, and nothing seemed able to stop them. As Zorath stared out of the window, the full weight of humanity's rise began to sink in. They had been underestimated, laughed at by the elite forces of the galaxy, dismissed as insignificant. Yet they had taken that mockery and turned it into a weapon. Every species in the galaxy had made the mistake of thinking humanity was weak, but now it was clear. Humans were capable of achieving anything. Their ingenuity, creativity, and resilience had no equal. Zorath's comm device beeped, snapping him out of his thoughts. It was a message from Malrix, one of the students he had spoken to earlier. The message read, "Zorath, you need to see this. The Galactic Empire has declared a state of emergency. They are calling for reinforcements from all over the galaxy. They know what's coming, and it's humanity." Zorath's heart raced. The Empire's desperation was becoming obvious. They were scrambling for allies, using their influence to pull in all the support they could muster. But Zorath knew that it wouldn't be enough. The humans had already proven that they could defeat impossible odds, and now they were focused on one thing: taking the galaxy for themselves. The transmission ended, and Zorath stood motionless for a moment. The balance of power was shifting right before his eyes. The Galactic Empire had relied on fear, on control, but humanity had come to the table with something else: determination. They were going to fight for their place in the galaxy, and they were not going to back down. Zorath could already see the rumblings of this new conflict taking shape. Small skirmishes had begun breaking out between human colonies and alien factions that had once been part of the Empire's dominion. There were reports of human fleets moving into previously uncharted areas, their ships appearing out of nowhere and striking with surprising efficiency. Humanity was no longer hiding in the shadows. They were stepping into the light, and the galaxy was watching in stunned silence. But it wasn't just their military that was causing waves. Humanity's political movements were just as formidable. They had created an alliance of their own, a coalition of human worlds united in their shared purpose. As their economic and technological influence grew, more and more species began to bend the knee, not out of fear, but out of respect. The idea of humanity's potential, its unlimited potential, was becoming clear to everyone, and those who resisted were being swiftly dealt with. Zorath's thoughts returned to the growing tension between the Empire and humanity. It was no longer a question of if humanity would rise. It was a question of when. The Empire, with all its vast resources and immense military might, was now on the defensive. For the first time in history, the balance of power was teetering, and humanity was the force that was shaking it. And then Zorath thought about the long-term consequences of this shift. The question wasn't just about who would win this war. It was about what would happen after. Humanity wasn't fighting for survival anymore. They weren't fighting for a place in the galaxy. No, they were fighting to take everything. And if they succeeded, if they managed to tip the balance completely in their favor, there was no telling what kind of future the galaxy would have. Zorath's heart raced again as he walked away from the window. There was no going back now. The storm that was humanity's rise had already begun, and soon, the entire galaxy would be forced to confront it. But what would happen when it did? Would the Galactic Empire finally fall? Would humanity rule the stars? Or would some other power rise to challenge them? One thing was certain: the future of the galaxy would never be the same again. The final reckoning. The galaxy was on the edge. It wasn't just the military might of humanity that had the Empire on the defensive. It was their relentless drive, their hunger for power, and their uncanny ability to adapt, to innovate. Humanity had gone from being overlooked and underestimated to becoming the singular threat that every species feared. Now, the Galactic Empire was in its final throes, scrambling to find allies, to hold its collapsing empire together. But the inevitable was coming. Zorath paced through the dimly lit halls of the Academy, his mind racing. His once steadfast belief in the Empire's invincibility was gone, replaced by the stark reality of what humanity had become. The final reports from his contacts were in. The Empire's fleets, once the pride of the galaxy, were crumbling. The human fleet, though small in comparison, had outsmarted and outclassed them at every turn. The Empire's once feared commanders were either retreating or surrendering. The war that had seemed impossible to win was slowly but surely turning in humanity's favor. And still, the question burned in Zorath's mind: what would happen once humanity had fully taken control? Zorath had seen it all firsthand: the brutal battles, the unrelenting tactics. Humanity's ability to adapt in the heat of combat had been unlike anything he had ever witnessed. They weren't just defending their homes. They were taking control of the galaxy piece by piece. The power that the Galactic Empire once held was slipping through their fingers as human forces expanded into once forbidden territories, dismantling resistance wherever it arose. Zorath knew that humanity's true power wasn't in their weapons or even in their cunning. They had something much more dangerous: a collective will. They were united in purpose, bound together by the singular belief that they were meant to rule the stars. The species that had once been looked down upon were now the ones setting the terms, and it was this collective force that the Galactic Empire could not contend with. The news arrived swiftly. Another key fleet had fallen. A massive warship, flagship of one of the Empire's most loyal allies, had been defeated in a matter of hours. The humans had struck fast, using their advanced technology and tactics to overwhelm a force that just weeks before would have been considered indomitable. And now, the remaining fleets were retreating, scattering across the galaxy in a desperate attempt to save what little they could of their empire. Zorath's comm device blinked with an incoming message. His heart skipped a beat as he read it. The message was from a fellow student, one who had been stationed with the human forces during a recent engagement. Zorath, it's over. The Empire is finished. Humanity has proven they are not just a threat. They are the new rulers of the galaxy. Every species will now bend to them. Our future is in their hands, and there is nothing we can do to stop them. Zorath felt a chill run down his spine. His mind raced as he processed the words. It wasn't just the Empire that was falling. It was the entire structure that had once held the galaxy together. Humanity was taking the reins of power, reshaping the galaxy in their image. For better or for worse, this was a new era. He stood there, motionless, staring at the message, unable to comprehend the full scope of what was happening. The fall of the Galactic Empire had seemed impossible just months ago, but now it was happening before his eyes, and there was no going back. The galaxy would be forced to reckon with humanity. All of their old systems, old allegiances, would be swept aside. The balance of power was shifting, and there was no telling where it would end. Zorath's thoughts drifted back to Master Tarek's warnings. He had always said that humanity was a force to be reckoned with, but even Tarek hadn't predicted just how quickly things would change. The Empire had underestimated them, and now it was too late. But Zorath wasn't the only one who was feeling the change. The entire galaxy was watching in shock and awe. The very foundations of intergalactic society were crumbling, and a new order was rising in its place. Species that had once clung to their status as powerful factions were now faced with the reality that humanity was no longer an afterthought. They were the new power, and their rise was unstoppable. Zorath's mind snapped back to the present. It was time. There would be no more waiting. The final showdown was approaching, and the future of the galaxy hung in the balance. Humanity was ready, and Zorath knew they would stop at nothing to secure their place at the top. He could hear the distant rumble of ships preparing for battle, the hum of engines, and the clash of forces coming together. The final reckoning was at hand, and the galaxy would never be the same again.
The betrayal unveiled. The vast chamber of the Galactic Council was as grand as it was intimidating. Towering columns of gleaming crystal stretched toward the domed ceiling, where holographic star maps shimmered, displaying the ever-changing expanse of the galaxy. Delegates from dozens of species occupied their respective seats, their diverse forms and features a testament to the Union's reach. Among them sat Elena Vasquez, Earth's ambassador, a figure of poise and unshakable resolve. Elena's seat, located near the edges of the chamber, symbolized Earth's relative youth in the Council. Though humanity had proven its worth through science, trade, and diplomacy, there was always an undercurrent of skepticism directed their way. Today, however, something felt off. As the meeting commenced, the Council leader, a towering insectoid named Hierarch Zith, began the session with a droning summary of resource allocations. It was routine, dull even, but Elena couldn't shake the tension in the air. The whispers among certain delegates, the subtle avoidance of her gaze, and the way some shifted uncomfortably. It all spoke of a secret just beneath the surface. Her suspicions deepened when Zith moved to the defense budget. "We must prioritize the security of key member worlds," the Hierarch declared, his voice a mechanical hum. Given the growing pirate threat in the Outer Rim, resources must be reallocated to ensure stability. Elena frowned, scanning the holographic display that appeared in front of her. It highlighted defense zones across the galaxy, marked in vivid green. Her eyes widened as she noticed something glaringly absent. "Earth." "Hierarch," she said, her voice cutting through the room like a blade. "I see no mention of Earth or its colonies in this report. Are we not considered a key member world?" The chamber fell silent. Delegates exchanged nervous glances, their postures stiffening. Zith's mandibles clicked audibly before he responded. "Ambassador Vasquez, Earth's defense needs are modest compared to others. Your proximity to safer sectors negates the necessity for increased resources." Elena's lips tightened. Modest needs? Safer sectors? She wasn't buying it. Earth had faced its fair share of threats, from rogue alien factions to natural disasters. This explanation didn't add up. "I understand the need for prioritization," she said, her tone calm but firm. "But Earth contributes significantly to the Council's resources. Surely, our protection should be a shared concern." Zith avoided her gaze. "Rest assured, Ambassador, Earth's safety is always in our thoughts." Liar. The session moved on, but Elena's mind churned. She couldn't let this go. After the meeting adjourned, she retreated to her private quarters aboard the Council station. A sleek and sterile space overlooking the stars. She activated her secure terminal and began scanning classified communications channels. Hours passed, and just as fatigue began to creep in, a particular file caught her attention. It was encrypted, bearing the insignia of the Council's inner circle. With practiced precision, she bypassed the security measures, her heart pounding with every keystroke. When the file finally opened, Elena's blood ran cold. It contained a series of messages between high-ranking Council members. The language was veiled, but the intent was clear. Earth was being deliberately excluded. More chillingly, there was talk of orchestrating a series of incidents near Earth's borders, fabricated attacks that would paint humanity as weak and unworthy of their fleet's strength. One line stood out like a dagger to the heart. "Once Earth's defenses are dismantled, their resources can be redistributed to more deserving members." Elena sat back, her breath shallow. This wasn't just neglect, It was betrayal. The Council wasn't merely ignoring Earth, they were setting humanity up for a fall. She immediately reached out to Admiral Kane, the head of Earth's fleet, through a secure line. His stern face appeared on the screen, his grey eyes sharp and unyielding. "They're planning something," she said without preamble, her voice laced with urgency. "The Council is targeting Earth. They want to weaken us, strip us of our defenses." Kane's jaw tightened, but his voice remained steady. "How much do you know?" "Enough to know we're in danger. They'll make their move soon." Kane nodded. "We've been preparing for this, Ambassador. They think we're vulnerable, but they don't know what we've been building. We'll be ready." Elena leaned closer to the screen, her determination burning bright. "They've underestimated us, Admiral. They think humanity will fall quietly. Let's show them they're wrong." They sprinted down the alley, the sound of heavy boots on the pavement growing louder. Jack had no idea where they were going, but Alex was leading the way with the speed and precision of someone who knew exactly what they were doing. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, Alex ducked into a narrow doorway, pulling them into a small building. It smelled of dust and old wood, and the dim light from the street filtered in through the cracks. They stopped for a moment to catch their breath, the adrenaline still coursing through their veins. "What's going on, Alex?" Jack demanded, trying to calm his racing heart. "Why are you helping us?" Alex lowered his voice, looking around to make sure they weren't being followed. "I've been keeping an eye on you, Jack. I know what David's planning. He's playing a dangerous game, and he's got a lot more power than you think. You don't want to go down that path. Trust me, this is bigger than you realize." Jack's mind was still racing. But why now? Why help us? Alex met his gaze, his face serious. "Because I owe you. And because you're not alone in this. We can take him down, but only if you're ready to fight back." For the first time since all of this started, Jack felt a glimmer of hope. He didn't know how they could win, or even what the next steps were, but he knew one thing for certain now. The game was far from over. And with Alex on their side, they might just have a chance. As the connection ended, Elena stared out at the stars beyond her window. The Galactic Council's betrayal was a wound, but it wasn't fatal. Humanity had faced betrayal before on Earth, in the wars of its history. Each time, they'd risen stronger, smarter, and more united. This time would be no different. The Council had made a grave mistake. And soon, they would learn just how dangerous it was to betray Humania World. In jeopardy, Admiral Kane paced the command deck of the Erebus, Earth's most advanced starship. The room was a blend of gleaming steel, soft holographic displays, and a hum of quiet efficiency. Officers manned their stations with precision, their faces tense but focused. The news from Ambassador Vasquez was grim, but it wasn't entirely unexpected. For years, whispers of discontent had circulated through the Council's dealings. Humanity's rise had been too swift for some species to accept. Earth's technological advancements, trade acumen, and growing influence had upset the delicate balance of galactic politics. Now it seemed, those simmering resentments had boiled over. Kane stopped in front of the main view screen, his arms crossed. The screen displayed a live feed of Earth, its blue oceans and green continents shimmering against the black void. It was beautiful, fragile, and utterly defenseless against what the Council had planned. "We've intercepted more transmissions from the Council," said Lieutenant Commander Marcus, Kane's second in command. The young officer's voice was steady, but there was an edge of anger beneath it. "They're already mobilizing fleets under the pretext of defending outer rim colonies. But their trajectories suggest they're preparing to surround our sector." Kane nodded grimly. "Classic misdirection. They want us to think it's a coincidence until it's too late." Dr. Mila Kovac, Earth's leading scientist, entered the command deck, her tablet clutched tightly in her hands. She was a small woman with sharp eyes that missed nothing. Her voice carried the weight of someone who had seen humanity rise from near collapse. If they're moving that fast, we have little time to act, Myla said. Have you decided to activate the fleet? Kane's expression hardened. We have no choice. The Council thinks they know our capabilities, but they've only seen the surface. It's time to show them what we've been hiding. Mila gave a slight nod. Good. Because if they succeed in dismantling our defenses, it won't just be Earth that falls. Humanity's colonies will be picked apart, one by one. They won't stop until we're nothing but a footnote in galactic history. Marcus hesitated before speaking. Admiral, there's still the question of how far we're willing to go. If we reveal everything now, it could escalate into full-scale war. Kane turned to him, his eyes cold. They've already declared war, in all but name, Marcus. Our job isn't to start a fight, it's to make sure they regret ever thinking they could win one. The tension on the command deck was palpable. For a moment, the only sound was the faint hum of the ship's systems. Then Kane issued his orders. Contact all fleet commanders. Initiate Operation Veilbreaker. Marcus's eyes widened slightly. You're deploying the Shadow Fleet? Yes, Kane said firmly. If the Council wants to play games, we'll show them why Earth has survived every challenge thrown its way. And we'll do it on our terms. Ty. The Shadow Fleet was Earth's most closely guarded secret, hidden in the asteroid belts and deep space stations scattered across the solar system. It was a collection of cutting-edge warships designed to counter any threat. Built in secrecy over decades, its existence was known only to a handful of top officials. Mila smiled faintly. They'll never see it coming. As the orders were transmitted, Kane turned back to the view screen. His mind drifted to the people of Earth, the families, the workers, the dreamers, who had no idea how close they were to annihilation. He had sworn an oath to protect them, and he intended to keep it. Far from Earth, the Galactic Council's inner circle convened in a private chamber. Hierarch Zith presided over the meeting, his mandibles clicking rhythmically as he spoke. Earth remains unaware of our full intentions, he said, his mechanical voice cold and detached. They're ambassador suspects, but without proof, they are powerless. By the time they realize what's happening, their fleet will be dismantled, and their influence will be a memory. A reptilian delegate hissed in agreement. Humans have grown too bold. They believe their primitive ingenuity can match our centuries of dominance. This will remind them of their place. Another delegate, a feline creature with glowing eyes, raised a question. And what of their colonies? Won't the other member species object if they're left undefended? Zith waved a claw dismissively. They'll fall in line. The Council thrives on fear and control. Once Earth is subdued, the rest will comply without question. The delegates murmured their assent, unaware of the storm brewing beyond their reach. On Earth, Elena Vasquez stood in her office, reviewing the encrypted message Admiral Kane had sent. It detailed the activation of the Shadow Fleet and their first objective, neutralize any scout ships sent by the Council. Elena allowed herself a small smile. Humanity had always thrived under pressure. Betrayal wasn't new to them. It was a challenge they knew how to overcome. As she looked out at the stars, she whispered to herself, let them come. They'll learn the hard way that Earth isn't just another planet to exploit. The stage was set, and humanity's counterattack had begun. The Council's betrayal would not go shadows in the void. The Erebus drifted silently through the vast expanse of space, its matter black hole nearly invisible against the backdrop of stars. Around it, dozens of similarly cloaked vessels emerged from hidden stations, asteroid fields, and long dormant depots. The Shadow Fleet had awakened. Admiral Kane stood at the command deck, his gaze fixed on the holographic display. The fleet's formation was taking shape: sleek cruisers, formidable battleships, and specialized reconnaissance ships designed for silent operations. Status report, Kane ordered. Lieutenant Commander Marcus, standing at his side, replied swiftly. All ships are operational and maintaining stealth protocols. Recon units report no signs of Council activity within the inner perimeter. Kane nodded. Good. Let's keep it that way. We move as one, no unnecessary risks. The Council must not know we're mobilizing until it's too late. He turned to Dr. Mila Kovac, who had joined them on the Erebus, to oversee the fleet's advanced systems. She was poring over a tablet filled with data streams, her sharp mind analyzing every detail. Doctor, Kane said, how confident are you in the cloak generators? Mila glanced up, her expression calm but serious. The generators are stable. Even their most advanced scanners shouldn't detect us unless we engage weapons systems. But once we fire, we'll light up like a supernova. Kane finished for her. Mila nodded. Exactly. We'll have to choose our moment carefully. Meanwhile, in Council-controlled space-alone scout ship, the Vexar patrolled the edge of Earth's sector. Its crew, a mix of reptilian and avian species, were seasoned operatives tasked with monitoring human activity. The ship's commander, Captain Thal Zix, was growing impatient. Nothing but static, Thal muttered, his clawed fingers tapping against the console. Humans are quiet, too quiet. It's unnatural for them. The ship's sensors officer, a bird-like creature named Pirel, chirped nervously. Perhaps they've detected our presence and are hiding their movements. Thal hissed, dismissing the idea. Unlikely. Humans are bold, reckless even. If they knew we were here, they'd try to confront us. Just as the words left his mouth, the ship's proximity alarms blared. Pirel squawked, her feathers ruffling in panic. Unidentified objects approaching from the aft quadrant. Thal whipped around to the view screen, but all he saw was empty space. What objects? There's nothing there. Pirel pointed at her console. They're cloaked, but their signatures are faint. They're closing in fast. Unanswered. On board the Erebus. Kane watched the scout ship on the tactical display, its faint energy signature marked in red. It was small, lightly armed, a perfect target to test the fleet's capabilities. Scout ship identified, Marcus reported. They haven't detected us visually, but their scanners are starting to pick us up. Kane considered the options. We can't let them report back. Prepare strike teams. Mila interjected. If we engage now, the Council might detect the energy spike. Are we ready to reveal our position? Kane's jaw tightened. Not yet. Disable, don't destroy. Deploy the Shadow Dagger. The Shadow Dagger was a specialized corvette designed for silent infiltration and disabling enemy vessels. Within minutes, it slipped away from the fleet, invisible against the void. Aboard the Vexar, Thal's frustration turned to alarm as the ship's systems began failing one by one. The lights flickered, the engines sputtered, and the weapons array went offline. What's happening? Thal roared. We're being hacked, Pirel cried, her claws scrambling over the controls. Something's overridden our systems. Before Thal could respond, a deep mechanical voice echoed through the ship's comms. This is the fleet of Earth. You have trespassed in our space and attempted to deceive us. Your ship is disabled. Return to your masters and tell them humanity will not be betrayed. Back on the Erebus, Kane listened to the transmission with satisfaction. The Shadow Dagger had done its job perfectly, leaving the scout ship intact but powerless. It was a message, a warning shot across the Council's bow. Signal the fleet to hold position, Kane ordered. We'll let them limp back to the Council. Let them wonder what else we're capable of. Marcus smiled faintly. A bold move, Admiral. But what if the Council retaliates sooner than expected? Kane turned to him, his expression steely. Then we'll be ready. They wanted to test humanity's resolve. Now, they'll see what happens when you push us too far. In the Council chamber, the Vexar's report arrived with devastating clarity. Delegates stared at the transmission, in stunned silence, the human fleet's warning replayed over and over. Hierarch Zith's mandibles twitched in anger. So, the humans think they can threaten us. Very well. If it's a war they want, we'll give them one. But beneath the bravado, a flicker of unease spread through the chamber. Humanity had been underestimated before, and every time, they had risen to the challenge. The question now was simple. How far were the humans willing to go to protect what was theirs? The Council's retaliation. The Council chamber was a hive of activity. Delegates from every corner of the galaxy argued fiercely, their voices rising in a cacophony of outrage and fear. The Vexar's report had shattered their assumptions about humanity's strength. No longer dismissed as a backwater species, the humans now posed a clear and present threat. Hierarch Zith, ever the tactician, banged a clawed hand against the central table, silencing the room. His glowing eyes scanned the assembly, his voice cold and commanding. Enough! The humans have made their move. Now it's time to make ours. A feline delegate, her fur bristling with unease, spoke up. But their fleet, how could they have hidden it from us? We've monitored their every step for decades. Zith clicked his mandibles thoughtfully. They were clever, I'll grant them that. But their technology, while impressive, cannot match the combined might of the Council. The reptilian delegate beside him hissed in agreement. We must strike now, before they have a chance to expand their influence further. A swift, decisive attack will show them the futility of their defiance. Meanwhile, on Earth, the Erebus had returned to Earth's orbital dock, its hull gleaming under the light of the sun. Inside, the mood was tense but determined. Admiral Kane and his senior officers had gathered in the briefing room, a holographic map of the galaxy hovering between them. All reports confirm the Council is mobilizing, Marcus said, pointing to several glowing markers on the map. Their fleets are converging here, and here. They're forming a blockade to cut off our colonies. Dr. Mila Kovac leaned forward, her expression grim. It's a classic containment strategy. They'll isolate us first, then launch a coordinated assault on Earth. If we don't break their momentum, they'll crush us. Kane's voice was steady, but his eyes betrayed the weight of responsibility. We knew this was coming. What's the status of our outer defenses? As critical systems failed, one by one. Report, Kren demanded, his voice cutting through the chaos. A shaken lieutenant turned toward him. Shields at 30%. 3 destroyers lost. The enemy fleet is maintaining their assault pattern. Our forces can't regroup. Kren slammed a clawed fist onto the armrest. Fools. They've baited us into a trap. Order the fleet to fall back and regroup at the secondary coordinates. We need to. Before he could finish, a new alert flashed across the console. A tactical officer gasped. High Marshal, the human flagship, is targeting us directly. On board the Erebus, Admiral Kane stood on the bridge, calm yet resolute. The Shadow Fleet moved like a predator in the void, each maneuver precise and calculated. Kane's gaze never wavered from the tactical display as the Thalics came into view. They're retreating, Marcus noted, his voice tinged with satisfaction. Their formation is breaking. Kane nodded. They think they can regroup and counter. We won't give them the chance. Target their flagship. Mila Kovac glanced up from her station, her expression serious. Are we sure about this? If we take out Kren Var, the Council might escalate this into an all-out war. Kane's eyes hardened. They've already made their decision. This is about survival. Fire when ready. A moment of tense silence followed as the Erebus's weapons locked onto the Thalics. Then, the flagship unleashed its payload, a barrage of high-intensity plasma torpedoes designed to punch through even the most advanced shielding. The Council fleet's desperation. The Thalic shuddered violently as the plasma torpedoes slammed into its hull. Fires erupted across its decks, and Krenvar was thrown from his chair. He scrambled to his feet, roaring commands at his panicked crew. Redirect all power to shields. Deploy fighters, ENOW. The order came too late. The Thalic's defense grid faltered, and the flagship was left vulnerable to the relentless onslaught. Around it, Council ships struggled to regroup, but the Shadow Fleet maintained relentless pressure, picking them off one by one. Earth's perspective. On Earth, billions watched the battle unfold through secure broadcasts. The sight of humanity's fleet, overwhelming the Council, filled them with both awe and hope. For decades, they had feared the Council's retaliation. Now they saw that their ingenuity and resilience had leveled the playing field. At a remote military command center, General Lin surveyed the data streams with a grim smile. "Kane is delivering the message loud and clear," she said to her staff. "But this is just the opening move. The Council won't forgive this." Her aide, a young officer, frowned. "Do you think they'll escalate?" Lin nodded. "Absolutely. But by then, the galaxy will know what humanity is capable of." Back on the Thalic's, the Council fleet's retreat had begun, but it wasn't orderly. Ship after ship blinked out of existence as the Shadow Fleet pressed the attack, their advanced cloaking technology allowing them to strike from impossible angles. Krenvar gritted his teeth as his tactical officer shouted over the din. "High Marshal, we can't hold this position. The fleet is in shambles." Kren knew the truth. They had underestimated humanity, assuming brute force and intimidation would suffice. Now their arrogance was costing them dearly. "Pull back," he snarled. "All surviving ships, retreat immediately." The remaining Council ships activated their hyperdrives, disappearing into the void. The Thalic's, its hull battered and smoking, followed suit. The battle was over, but for the first time in centuries, the Galactic Council had tasted defeat. A quiet victory. As the Shadow Fleet regrouped, the tension on the Erebus's bridge finally eased. Kane exhaled deeply, though his expression remained grim. "Status report," he said. Marcus scanned the readouts. "Minimal losses on our end. The Council's fleet is in full retreat. They'll regroup, but it'll take time." Kane nodded. "Good. Let's use that time wisely. This isn't over." Mila approached, her tone softer. "We just sent a message to the galaxy, Admiral. But are we ready for the consequences?" Kane looked out at the stars, his voice steady. "We didn't choose this fight, but we'll finish it." The bridge fell silent, the crew reflecting on the magnitude of their actions. The first victory was theirs, but the shadow of what lay ahead loomed large. Humanity had struck back, but the war was far from over. The gathering storm. The Galactic Council's retreat was short-lived. Within hours, secure channels across the galaxy buzzed with outrage and disbelief. Humanity's bold counterstrike was no longer a secret. The Council's humiliation had become a rallying cry for vengeance. In the grand halls of the Council's core world, the surviving fleet commanders assembled, their pride bruised and their resolve hardening. High Marshal Krenvar stood before them, his imposing figure casting a shadow over the chamber. Despite his flagship's defeat, his voice was cold and commanding. "We underestimated them once. That mistake will not happen again." A reptilian delegate hissed in anger. "Understatement, High Marshal. The humans have humiliated us. We cannot let this stand." Another counselor, a crystalline entity, chimed in, their voice resonating like shattering glass. Their technology and tactics were unprecedented. How did they develop such capabilities without our knowledge? Krenvar glared at the assembly. "Enough. We cannot afford panic or finger-pointing. Humanity may have won a battle, but the war is far from over. We must respond with overwhelming force. Assemble every fleet at our disposal. Let them feel the weight of the Council's wrath." The chamber fell silent, the weight of his words sinking in. The Council was preparing for total war. Meanwhile, on Earth, Admiral Kane leaned against the command console in the Erebus's war room. The adrenaline of victory had long since faded, replaced by the sobering reality of what was to come. Dr. Mila Kovac entered, a tablet in hand, her expression serious. The Council's movements are becoming clear. Reconnaissance probes confirm massive fleet mobilizations across their core systems. Kane nodded. They're coming, and they'll bring everything they have. Marcus frowned, studying the tactical map. We can't outgun them head-on. Even with the Shadow Fleet, their sheer numbers will overwhelm us eventually. Mila set the tablet down, her tone resolute. Then we don't fight head-on. We exploit their arrogance again, hit their supply lines, disrupt their communications, force them into chaos. Kane smiled faintly. Guerrilla tactics on a galactic scale. Mila returned the smile. Exactly. Let them chase shadows while we dismantle their foundation. The galaxy reacts. News of humanity's defiance spread quickly. Across countless worlds, species that had long suffered under the Council's iron grip began to question its authority. Quiet whispers of rebellion grew louder, and secret messages of support began arriving on Earth's encrypted channels. In a hidden enclave on the outskirts of Earth's largest city, General Lin reviewed the latest transmissions. She turned to her aide, her expression both hopeful and cautious. Resistance movements on 6 worlds have reached out. They're looking to us for leadership, Lin said. The aide hesitated. Do you think we can trust them? Lin nodded. The Council's tyranny has made enemies everywhere. Humanity's stand has given them hope. If we unite with them, we'll have a chance to turn the tide. In the shadows, deep in Council space, a secret meeting took place. A group of dissidents, representing species long subjugated by the Council, gathered in a dimly lit chamber. Among them was Rin Tail, a former Council strategist turned rebel leader. The humans have done what we could not, Ryan said, his voice calm but full of conviction. They've shown us that the Council is not invincible. Now is the time to strike. A Saurian warrior growled in agreement. If we wait, they'll crush the humans and double their grip on us. Rin nodded. Then we act. We'll coordinate with the humans and open multiple fronts. The Council won't know where to focus their forces. The rebels raised their hands in unison, their pact sealed. The seeds of galactic revolution had the Shadow Fleet was regrouping, its captains strategizing for the battles ahead. Kane stood before his officers, the weight of leadership evident in his voice. The Council will come at us with everything they've got, Kane said. But they'll face more than just us. Resistance movements are rising across the galaxy, and they're looking to us for guidance. Mila stepped forward, addressing the room. This isn't just humanity's fight anymore. It's a fight for every species that suffered under the Council's rule. Together, we can bring them down. A murmur of agreement spread through the room. The officers knew the stakes. Victory meant freedom not just for humanity, but for countless others. Being sown. On board the Erebus. The final preparations. As the Council's fleets gathered, so too did the forces of rebellion. Ships from across the galaxy, some battered and outdated, began converging on Earth. Engineers and strategists worked tirelessly to integrate the disparate technologies into a unified fighting force. Admiral Kane watched the growing armada from the observation deck, his thoughts heavy. Mila joined him, her presence a quiet comfort. "Do you think we're ready?" she asked. Kane's gaze remained fixed on the stars. "We don't have a choice. Ready or not, the Council's coming, and we'll meet them head-on." Mila smiled softly. "One step at a time, Admiral. One step at a time." The fleet stood poised, a symbol of defiance and hope. The final battle was on the horizon, and humanity was ready to face it. The final reckoning. The Council's fleet arrived in force, a vast and menacing armada that stretched across the void. Their ships bristled with weaponry, their engines burning bright as they surrounded Earth. It was an overwhelming show of power, meant to crush any hope of resistance. But humanity and its allies were ready. The Shadow Fleet, along with the growing coalition of rebel forces, stood their ground. From the surface of Earth to the orbiting command stations, every soul prepared for what would be the most decisive battle in galactic history. The Council's ultimatum. High Marshal Kren Var's image flickered to life on the Erebus's main screen, his expression cold and calculating. "Humans," he began, his voice dripping with disdain, "you have defied the natural order, disrupted the peace of the galaxy, and brought chaos to our worlds. Surrender now, and your annihilation will be swift and merciful." Admiral Kane stood firm, his gaze steady. "And if we refuse?" Kren Var sneered. "Then Earth burns. You will be nothing more than a cautionary tale for the rest of the galaxy." Kane's response was quiet, but his words carried the weight of humanity's resolve. "We'll take our chances." The transmission ended abruptly, and the battle began. The battle unfolds. The void erupted with fire as the Council's ships surged forward. Their initial assault was relentless, a barrage of plasma bolts and torpedoes aimed at breaking the defensive lines. But humanity's fleet fought back with equal ferocity. The Erebus led the charge, its advanced cloaking systems and precision weaponry allowing it to weave through the enemy formation, dealing devastating blows. Around it, ships of all shapes and sizes, human and alien alike, worked together in a coordinated effort. The rebel forces, though smaller and less equipped, proved invaluable. Using guerrilla tactics, they targeted the Council's supply ships and command vessels, creating chaos within their ranks. Earth's defenses hold strong. On the surface, Earth's planetary defenses roared to life. Massive railguns and missile silos launched volley after volley, intercepting incoming Council ships and providing cover for the fleet above. General Lin coordinated the efforts, her sharp mind ensuring that every resource was used effectively. "Focus fire on their carriers," she ordered. "If we take out their ability to launch fighters, we can create an opening for the fleet." Her commands were met with swift action. Explosions lit up the sky as Earth's defenses struck critical targets, forcing the Council to divert resources to protect their larger ships. The turning point. Despite the Council's numerical advantage, cracks began to form in their strategy. Humanity's unorthodox tactics, combined with the relentless assaults from the rebel forces, created a battlefield of chaos and confusion. On board the Thalix, Kren Var's frustration boiled over. "Why are we losing ground?" he roared. A tactical officer hesitated before answering. "The humans and their allies. They're fighting as if they've been doing this for decades. Their coordination is unmatched." Kren Var slammed his fist onto the console. "Impossible. They're nothing but primitives." Before he could finish, the Erebus appeared out of nowhere, its weapons locked onto the Thalix. Kane's bold maneuver. Admiral Kane stood on the bridge, his voice steady. "This ends now. All power to the main weapons. Target the Thalix reactor." Mila hesitated. "If we take out their flagship, it could cause a chain reaction. Their entire fleet might retaliate." Kane's gaze was unwavering. "If we don't, they'll regroup and crush us." Fire. The Erebus unleashed its full arsenal, plasma torpedoes and railgun rounds, striking the Thalix with pinpoint accuracy. The Council flagship shuddered under the assault, its shields failing as fire consumed its hull. A final explosion ripped through the Thalix, silencing Kren Var and throwing the Council fleet into disarray. Victory and sacrifice. With the Thalix destroyed, the remaining Council ships hesitated. The rebel forces seized the moment, pressing their advantage and driving the Council fleet into full retreat. Cheers erupted across Earth and the Allied ships, but the victory was bittersweet. The cost had been great: countless lives lost, ships destroyed, and scars that would linger for generations. The galaxy changes forever. In the weeks that followed, the Galactic Council's power crumbled. Their defeat at the hands of humanity and its allies inspired revolts on dozens of worlds. The once dominant council fractured, its influence reduced to scattered factions. Earth, once seen as a backwater planet, became a symbol of resilience and hope. Humanity extended a hand to its newfound allies, forging a coalition that promised a future of equality and cooperation. Admiral Kane stood on a balcony, overlooking Earth's bustling cities, his heart heavy but proud. Mila joined him, her expression soft. "We did it," she said. "The council is broken." Kane nodded. "But the galaxy is watching. Now we have to lead." The stars above seemed brighter than ever, a reminder that humanity's fight had not just been for survival, but for a better future for all.